Hello, I'm Jeremy, and welcome to another episode of RevUs Reviews. Arnold Schwarzenegger has certainly had an illustrious film career. While he's most known for playing the T-1000, he's also been in a bunch of other beloved films, like Conan the Barbarian, Twins, Kindergarten Cop, Commando, Total Recall, Jingle All the Way, and True Lies. But of all of Schwarzenegger's filmography, my favorite would have to be Last Action Hero. Danny Madigan has a tough life, which he copes with by watching the films of Jack Slater, an action hero played by Arnold Schwarzenegger. One day, while going to see Jack Slater 4, the theater's projectionist, Nick, gives Danny a magic ticket that Houdini had given to him. And while watching the movie, the ticket transports Danny into the world of Jack Slater. While there, Jack and Danny try to work together, while Danny tries to convince Jack that he's living in a movie. Later on in the film, Benedict, the henchman of Jack Slater 4's bad guy, finds Danny's magic ticket and uses it to transport him and Tough Asian Guy, the other henchman, into the real world. Because of this, Jack and Danny have to go out of the crazy world of Jack Slater 4 and into the real world in order to stop Benedict from releasing evil characters from other movies. Unlike most satires, which only poke fun at the things they're satirizing, Last Action Hero actually analyzes as well as makes fun of the things it's satirizing. And while other films have done this, such as Pleasantville and Enchanted, they don't do it to the extent that Last Action Hero does. Throughout the film, Danny makes observations about how fake the world is, like how every woman is attractive, how Slater's boss paired him up with Danny even though in the real world that would never happen, and how one of the cops is an animated cat. Also, there are other clever jokes, like Slater's boss getting so mad that he literally shouts gibberish, Slater shooting dynamite away, and how in Slater's world Sylvester Stallone was the Terminator. Speaking of jokes, I think the reason a lot of people weren't into this film's comedy is because it wasn't immediately obvious what the joke was. For example, going back to the animated cat, the joke with that isn't, oh, there's a random animated cat, lol. It's a satire on the ridiculousness of buddy cop pairings. A long time ago, buddy cop pairing movies were about a stone-cold pro who had to be paired with a fun-loving rookie, like 48 Hours and The Rookie. But over the years, buddy cop movies started turning out more ridiculous and ludicrous entries, like Stop or My Mom Will Shoot or Top Dog. The animated cat was an extension of that ridiculousness, poking fun at how the buddy cop genre has gotten so silly that an animated cat might not sound so bizarre for a stone-cold pro cop to be paired with. And you know what's even better? Think about Danny and Slater working together. A grizzled tough cop being paired with a little kid who loves action. Sound familiar? Except here's the kicker. Cop and a Half was made after Last Action Hero. That means Last Action Hero managed to spoof a film that didn't even exist yet. That is impressive. But let's move on from the satire and let's talk about the characters. Danny Madigan is a really good kid character. He's smart-alecky without being obnoxious, and I like the passion he has for Jack Slater films. It's very similar to the passion I have with my favorite movies. And in a world full of idiots who write pretentious articles about how technology is bad and we need to go to electronic rehab, it's refreshing to see a character that demonstrates the good parts of technology, mainly movies. Also, Danny and Jack work really well together. Their differing personalities, as well as Danny's knowledge of Jack's world, gives them a really funny dynamic. Next is Jack Slater. Slater's a really good parody of an action hero. He has a very tough, no-nonsense attitude, and is also rebellious in a similar way to Quincy from the old TV show Quincy M.E., which I highly recommend watching, by the way, in that he tries to sniff his nose where it doesn't belong. And while in the first act all he does is say to Danny, "We're not in a movie," and investigate the bad guys, in the second act where he and Danny get out of the screen, he starts to become a more interesting character. He copes with the fact that his entire life is fabricated and that he's simply a movie character, as well as the fact that all of the painful, traumatic stuff that made him who he is was written by some guy in Hollywood. Also, Schwarzenegger does a great job as Slater. I've heard complaints that Bruce Willis would have been better in the Slater role, but I disagree. Don't get me wrong, Willis is a great actor, But the performance and mannerisms that worked for John McClane wouldn't have worked as well for Jack Slater. Schwarzenegger, on the other hand, is perfect in the role. His experience as an action hero in films like Commando and True Lies makes him a natural at action scenes. His charisma adds a lot of personality to the character, and he has a lot of really good lines. Next is the theater's projectionist, Nick. Nick is a very kind, warm-hearted character. And I like the bond he and Danny share over their love of film. It's a very sweet bond. Slater's boss, Decker, is also a very good character. He's a funny parody of Chief characters. In addition to the gibberish joke, he also uses really juvenile insults, has mannerisms that perfectly fit his character, and, like most of the characters in this movie, has a lot of really good lines. And now let's get to the villain, Benedict. Benedict is one of my all-time favorite villains. Why? Well, first of all, his acting. Charles Dance blends perfectly into the role of Benedict. He has a very dignified, menacing voice and really captures the feel of both a henchman and villain. Second, I like the character of Benedict. He's a perfect blend of both menacing and funny. He also has a lot of really good lines like, "I shot somebody and I did it on purpose," and "in this world, the bad guys can win." Also, I like his plan. The idea of using the ticket to go into different films and get some of the most evil characters in fiction is a really creative and interesting villain plan. And while he did bring back the Ripper from Jack Slater 3, it would have been cool if he also brought back villains from other films like Dracula, Chucky from Child's Play, or the Dark Overlord from Howard the Duck. There's also other things I like about this film, like the turncoat who's played by the villain from Amadeus, the funeral scene, Danny's Hamlet dream, and how Death from the Seventh Seal comes out to help Danny. Clever scenes for a clever movie. In conclusion, Last Action Hero is a fun, silly, enjoyable take on the action movie genre. The reason that it failed, aside from the fact that it went up against Jurassic Park, and the fact that Schwarzenegger's involvement led to high expectations, similar to Howard the Duck with George Lucas, is that it was too clever and bizarre for mainstream audiences. People couldn't get a handle on what it was trying to be, so they weren't able to enjoy it. But that's what makes Last Action Hero so special. It's just a bizarre, fun, unique, enjoyable movie. If you haven't seen Last Action Hero, I highly recommend it. It's fun, it's creative, it's enjoyable, it's just fantastic. That's all for now. Join me next time when I talk about an odd 90s movie with bizarre and grotesque creatures, a surreal sense of humor, and Alex Winter. See you then.
Oh.